Greetings, people of the internet. This is Scott with Serkworks Art Labs, and this is another bonus issue of Making Comics 101. So if you're not familiar with how this works, every Monday I put out a new topic having to do with making comics. We're going to go everything from coming up with the ideas all the way to the finish, publishing and promoting your book, and then all that stuff in between. And right now we are talking about references. That's what we presented this week, was references. So we do that on Monday. I put out the main video, kind of set up the topic, give that big introduction and all the info drop that I can do. And then on Wednesday, we dive a little deeper into a certain aspect having to do with that topic this week, like I said, being references. And then on Friday, I give a little quick tip. So today, I want to talk to you about Pinterest. This is an awesome tool for, for collecting and recording references and things like that for your comics. Now, you may think, Pinterest, isn't that just about like recipes and macrame and stuff like that? Well, sure. I mean, most of the people use it for that type of thing. But it really is, if that's your impression of it and you haven't looked deeper into it, let me hopefully change your mind about that, because this is it's just an incredible, I want to say program. It's not really a program, it's an app or whatever you want to call it. But Pinterest is awesome for collecting references, and I use it all the time. It's pretty much replaced all that other stuff I talked about, the morgue, and even I use Pinterest way more than I use even Google image search, but you can kind of use them in tandem, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, so I just want to show you, this is my Pinterest board. And I've got boards for so many different things, and I use it for different things, not only for reference, but also just for like marketing some of the products that I make and all that kind of stuff. So I can show you, here's just, before we get into some of the reference stuff, let me show you. So this is a board I created, and there's a lot of this type of stuff, because it is, a lot of families, and they want to create, birthday parties or whatever, and so they're getting inspiration for that type of thing. So I just created all this, and I haven't put it in here yet, but I sell these books on, that help, that, they're for anyone really, but kids can use them to create their own comics and stuff. So I'm just going to drop them into this board with all this other stuff. People come here looking for this, planning their birthday parties, and then they're like, oh wow, that would be a great party favor. So that's kind of why I started to create this board. So I'll do this where I'll create these boards, and then you don't want to just create boards that only have your own stuff on it. You want to kind of, if you're promoting your comic, put a bunch of other indie comics in there as well, and then sprinkle your own ideas in there, and then create a board called Indie Comics, and then maybe people can discover that. So that's sort of one board there. Now here's getting into some of the inspiration, and I've got inspiration for other things, not just comics, but my whole vibe is mad science. So I've got all this inspiration for ideas for that mad science aesthetic that I do. So I've got a board on that. I also have, this one's kind of cool, if you've seen the Underground Lair, if you want to know where I got some inspiration for that. Look at all this really cool 90s Nickelodeon Willy Wonka-esque factory stuff, and all this stuff is on Pinterest, and as soon as I see something cool, I'll just pin it, and I'll show you guys how to do that if you're not familiar. But look at all this kind of, it's everything from super fun all the way to, some more Dr. Frankenstein type stuff, and I just love that whole idea. So that's where I get a lot of the ideas for that. And likewise, like with my comics. So this is all like horror stuff, and some of these I haven't dived as deep. This I was using, and I've got some other boards having to do with this too, but when I was designing the cover for the 100 Days Anthology, I wanted sort of this EC Comics look, Tales from the Crypt, all that kind of stuff. So I collected some of that stuff and created a board on there, and I've got a separate board for that. I'll get into that in a minute, but I'll just kind of go through some of these. I do have one board that's just my own stuff, but like I said, I try to take some of this stuff and sprinkle it in with some of the other areas. I'm big on like that retro future vibe. Look at all this stuff. You got all this kind of mid-century design and sci-fi, what the people in the 50s thought the future would look like, and I really like that idea. So let me kind of show you how you can search for this stuff. You can obviously go here in the search and you can type in retro future or futuristic or 50s future or anything like that. All right, so I'm gonna click on this Star Trek tricorder. Now this is sort of a production design, but this is actually something I had as a kid. It's a cassette player, but it looks, I mean, look at that. It's pretty cool. So I wanna save this, but I'm gonna save this to a different board. So I click on this, and then I can go through, and I could save it on my Retro Future board, but I have another board here. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, toys I had. So these are all toys that I had as a kid. So I'm going to save it to this board because I had this actual toy. And then I can kind of, let's go back here and I can kind of show you how it saved it to that board. Now I just have to go and find the toys I had board. Now I don't know how this organizes everything because it's not alphabetical, which is kind of weird. That might be helpful, but maybe it's when you create it. Toys I had. So I'm just going to go to this Toys I Had board. Now this is just for, pretty much just for me, for nostalgic purposes. But as you can see, so I've saved that and now it's going under that particular board. So these are all toys and things that I had as a kid. Because, you know, there's a lot of people that collect toys. That's kind of an expensive hobby. So I just kind of like to live vicariously and collect pictures of the toys that I had. Maybe there's something really cool like that. If I happen to find one of these, I might actually buy it. But anyway. So you can kind of see how that works. So you can just pick which boards you want and everything. You can also, say if I was to go to like Google image search, I'm just going to search figure drawing, images. Now, if you look, see how I roll over, see how I got this Pinterest? Now these are little, I don't know if this is a Chrome extension or it's some kind of plugin, like a Pinterest plugin where you can install it into Chrome so that if you find anything on any other site, any photo, you can save that. So say if I like this gesture, I wanted to save, I'll just click on this, and then once again, I just kind of scroll through here, and then I can pin it to wherever I want. Let me see if I can find the gestures. Yeah, there we go. This part is alphabetical order, so I'm just going to click and I'm going to save this to gesture poses. So it's fairly simple. So you can use it if you've got that extension. You can do all kinds of stuff. So I'm just going to show you. I'll go through and show you some of the other like inspirations, just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that you can collect. And the cool thing is, you can go to my Pinterest and basically follow me, and you can basically steal my boards. Just, you know, you can follow my boards, and then you can take those and start pinning stuff from my own boards just to give you a start. Because that's what when I first discovered Pinterest, it was a while back, and not too many artists were using it. There is mostly, like I said, you know, the typical stuff that you're thinking about, like fashion and all that kind of stuff. But I think Jake Parker was using it at the time. He was one of the early adopters of using this for reference. So I just went to his board and I picked out the stuff that I liked, and from there I started building my own boards. You know, I kind of got to start with that, and then, you know, some of the stuff that he pinned, I was like, oh, that's, you know, that's not, I don't really need that. So I kind of took what I liked, and that gave me a starting point. So, and that's what you can do if you want to start, you know, kind of building all these different boards of references. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of robots. I do robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. So I have boards for all that stuff. But here's my robot board. You can see all these different robots that I use for inspiration. So that's one of my boards. Vintage posters. I love this sort of vintage aesthetic. So I've got a board on that. And again, I'm just showing you these to give you an idea. Gig posters is more sort of vintage, but very stylized. The best movie posters right now aren't the ones you see actually advertising movies. It's the ones like that Mondo are doing and everything like that. So I wish, you know, the studios would do that too. Machines, look at this. So if you have to draw really cool machines, like I don't even know what half this stuff is, but it looks cool, and that gives me inspiration for when I draw robots and all kinds of mechanical stuff. Character design, if I want different inspiration for different character design, different styles. Got a board on that. Let's see, costume design. Oops, that was on a particular, oh, there we go. So you can see all kinds of different costume designs, and you can break this down into, you can even break it down into further, like particular costume designs. Like if you want to go like like turn of the century stuff, or like medieval or whatever, you can do that, or more futuristic stuff. Animals, you know, both I've got some that are cartoony, some that are more realistic. Inspiration for that. Illustrations, some kind of cool illustration styles that I kind of like. You know, and we've talked about this, but use a variety. You can see how a lot of these styles, they're not the same. If I only liked one particular style, my artwork would probably start to look like that. But you can look at what different people are doing and just adopt different aspects of that. Of course, I've got gestures here. You saw us save one of those drawings from there. Expressions. Look at all these different expressions that you can look to get inspiration. All these different head turns and things like that. Hairstyles, obviously. You know, there's so many different hairstyles, and sometimes it's hard for me to think of a particular hairstyle that might work for a character or something different. So I'll just go on here and I'll look and like, oh, I like that one. Hands are one of the hardest things to draw. I'm surprised I don't have more hands on here. I probably should build this board up. But that's something you could do. You can go in and take some of my hands that I've collected and just start building your own stuff. Automobiles. Look at all these different cool cars, whether it's like old classic cars or futuristic or, you know, Blade Runner type cars. Architecture. Look at some of this architecture. Cool architecture. So as you can see, I mean, pretty much anything I can think of. Weapons. Some cool weapons, whether it's, you know, it's guns or stabbing weapons or spaceships. There's some cool spaceship designs. And the cool thing about spaceships is you can look at things like just crazy stuff like toasters and like, what would this look like as a ship? Because that's what they, you know, a lot of that what they did. Boats, you know, so I got boats, trains, all this kind of stuff. It doesn't, you know, it's pretty unlimited. Backgrounds and environments. Effects, like if you need to draw some kind of effect, like if your hero's like shooting, you know, fire or something like that, you can use that. What else? Graphic design, package design, typography, crafts, game UI. I used to do a lot of game design. Maps. I've got one little cute little monsters. Let's see, game design, fan art, posters, tips, like little different drawing tips. We'll get into some of this stuff here, but here's some great tips for drawing. Just different ideas for whatever. Let's see, what do we got? Now, this is something I want to share with you right here. In addition to these boards that are public, that, like I said, you can go and follow me, and you can pull some of this stuff for your own, you know, projects or comics or whatever. But you can also create secret boards. And this stuff, you won't be able, if you follow me, you won't be able to see these, but I'm gonna give you a little preview of some of the stuff that's on my secret boards. So the comic that I'm working on, sort of the sample comic for this series, this Wild Thing, if you've seen some of the drawings, you'll know it takes place in this sort of dystopian, overrun by plant life, you know, and this is, so I created a whole board for that. You can kind of see how, you know, all this vegetation has overgrown like these amusement parks and stuff. So look at all this stuff. This is just great inspiration for this story that I'm doing. So that's a board that, you know, I didn't want everyone to see that right off the bat, so I wasn't going to post that in my public. But now that I'm starting to work on it, I can share that with you. And that goes the same for for client work. If you're working on client stuff for clients, like this is, I did this thing for the Fantasy Footballers podcast. I don't know much about football, but they wanted sort of a superhero aesthetic. So there wasn't a lot in here because there's not a lot of that type of design, but that was sort of the look they were going for. So that was for a client. Another project. Well, here, this is cool. So this is the board that I used when I was doing my story and the cover artwork for the 100 Days of Making Comics anthology. Werewolves and unicorns. So you can see I got some werewolf stuff, some unicorn stuff, and then some of these different things for, you know, there's different poses and expressions that I was using for reference, glasses for some of the characters in my story. You can kind of see all this stuff, some of this, you know, just trying to get a style and looking at a bunch of different styles and all this stuff, poses. You know, if there's this pose of this girl looking at this phone, it's kind of her expression is sort of what I use for the girl sitting at the table, just kind of bored. So yeah, so that's my board for the 100 days. Now this is kind of cool. So this was a project that I wish would have happened for a client, but it never never really took off, but it was basically, I hope somebody still does this, but it was like zip line. It was like a combination of laser tag and zip lines. So you'd have these 2 zip lines, and you'd spin across, and you'd shoot targets along the way, and you could shoot, I guess, your opponent and everything. But they wanted this cool futuristic aesthetic for this. So this is some of the stuff I collected. And unfortunately, like, you know, that project really never got off the ground. But it would have been cool. It would have been something I would have really liked to work on. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I have on my secret boards. I've got a Young and the Dead secret board here. You can maybe see some of this if you've seen. If you've read the comics, you might see some of the, you know, just even like in the most recent one, there's a character kind of pushing one of these carts through the hospital. So just so I know how to draw that stuff. There's an ice cream truck, and there's an arcade. So I got all these old retro arcades, all these old retro snacks that you'll see in the convenience store in one of my things, the bikes that the kids ride, all that stuff. That's where I got a lot of the inspiration for my comic. So yeah, so that's pretty much Pinterest. So yeah, it's super simple. Just go to Pinterest and just start pinning away. I mean, it's very user friendly. You just find what you want and you pin it, and you create the boards you want to do. And I'm not going to go too deep on how. I mean, like I said, it's fairly self-explanatory, but there are other videos out there that will show you how to create Pinterest boards if you get in and it's like you're still not quite 100% sure on how to do it. But I just wanted to show you a lot of the boards and things that I'm using. And like I said, feel free to go to if I can remember, I'll leave a link to where my Pinterest is, or just search Serkworks on Pinterest. You'll probably find me. And you can start just pinning some of my boards or saving some of my boards. And yeah, it's just really cool for creating a reference. And I mean, it's my favorite tool. So that's why I wanted to pretty much devote an entire episode on this, because this is my #1 way of chronicling and recording and keeping track of all my references. So there you go. That'll do it for another bonus issue of 100 Days of Making Comics, talking all about references. And we'll be back with another quick tip. And then after that, we're going to get into the stuff you've all been waiting for, some of the penciling and stuff like that. So that's it. I'll see you guys later, and that is all.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. If you like making comics, then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.